We're back with another playoff preview, and this time we're looking at the Pioneer League. We are going to do as we've done in each of these previous ones and explain the schedule, explain the bracket, and then look at the 4 teams that are going to be involved and finish with a little bit of prediction work for you as well. So, that being said, let's jump right on into it. Schedule on the screen right now. We could be done over with all of this in about a week. Postseason is going to start on the 11th. That is later today. It's going to run 11, 12, and if necessary, 13 for a final game of the first round. 3 straight, all play in the same location. And for the record, I love that way of doing things. I think it rewards the higher seed, rewards you for having a good season, and most of all, just keeps things moving, keeps it very efficient and tight. Big fan of that. However, second round begins a few days later and can run into early following week for that. So, pretty neat, pretty tight. Like it as a whole. We'll take a look at the bracket real quick before we dive in and preview these 4 teams. We have Oakland, Ogden scoring off. Oakland winners the first and second half. 73-23 is their record. A fantastic year from the Ballers in the Bay. Ogden on the flip side, 52-43, the last wildcard team to make it. A so-so season of ups and downs. Evan Tat Daddy Parker getting his squad to the postseason though. We'll talk a bit more about them in just a little bit, but on the flip side of that bracket, we have the Missoula Paddleheads and the Idaho Falls Shookers. I believe is how that's pronounced. It could be Shuckers, it could be Shookers, but I think it's Shookers. Either way, they'll be taking on a 64-32 Missoula team that has had pretty much great regular season since going independent, and that Idaho Falls team will go to bat with a 54-41 record. Another team making it in off the back of a strong second half showing. And in the case of Missoula, they will have something to prove in the postseason. But on that note, let's dive in to each of these teams. We will start by the Bay in Oakland, a team that was one of the better, if not the best pitching team in the league this past year. A lone team with a sub-5 ERA, which by Pioneer League standards would probably translate to around a 3 ERA in most leagues. Obviously, they have the benefit of not playing in the hills, but rather closer to sea level, but even still, an impressive record on that front. Number 1 in WHIP, number 3 in Ks, fewest hits allowed and fewest walks allowed too, so they are not going to allow a lot of base runners. They're going to get their strikeouts in as well. Not allowing walks while being a strikeout team is a very rare combo. Normally we see a lot of walks. If you see a lot of strikeouts, Oakland bucks that trend. Obviously, the flip side of not being in a hitter-friendly environment is your batting stats aren't going to look as good compared to all the other teams that play up in the hills. However, they still put together a very nice slash line of 304, 395, 510. So this is still a team that can hit. This is still a team that can put runs across. They're 7th in the league for that, just under 800 of them. So it's not a terribly overwhelming situation for them at the dish. They are going to have their work cut out for them. But even still, a team that is, 50 games above 500, you would expect them to roll fairly easily. Now, they're going to be going against Ogden, and Ogden is a team that can hit. Second best batting average, second best on base in the league as well. Slugging was middle of the pack, steals are middle of the pack, total base middle of the pack, but they did score the second most runs. So if they can get these runs in bunches, they can put up big numbers here. I will caution for a lot of the offensive stats, not only in addition to ballpark factor being a major consideration, you also have to take into account the schedules aren't exactly even just due to the spread out nature of the Pioneer League. So these teams may have gotten more games against weaker opponents. A team like Ogden may have gotten the disaster class that was Colorado baseball this past year more than Oakland did. So that could be a factor in all of this as well. But regardless, even with that factored in, they are still a solid hitting team. Pitching wise, it's going to be an uphill battle for them. An ERA of 7.4, a WHIP that was tied for middle of the pack of nearly 2. They allowed a lot of hits, they walked a lot of guys, and they didn't strike out all that many, 737 to be exact, middle of the pack there. You would hope for a little bit better than that out of Ogden, but regardless of this, it'll be an uphill battle for them. They're going against a more complete team, a well-rounded team. We'll find out if the Raptors have enough in it to win 2 of 3 by the Bay. Going to the next set, we have Idaho Falls to look at here. And this is an elite batting team. First in all the major categories, each of the slash line stats, as well as total bases, as well as runs scored. 10th in stolen bases, but as we said in previous previews, if you are a team that can't hit, there is less incentive to run because you're just risking a potential run from scoring if they get thrown out. So if you have a team that's hitting 350 like the Shookers are, if you have a team that's slugging 570 like the Shookers are, and getting on base at nearly a 450 clip, why would you run? And when you put up 948 runs in a season, that's pretty damn impressive in a 96 game set, regardless of who you're going against. Pitching is obviously a struggle here. ERA over 8, which is definitely alarming. They are the other team that's tied for 6th for that 1.91 whip. Again, they don't strike out too many, 685 there. They allow a lot of hits, and they allow not that many walks, third fewest actually at 381, but the hits are a problem, and you would hope that you can at least find 2 or 3 solid starters to try and navigate your way through it up in Missoula. I do think with that offense in the environment they're going into, though, that could be a challenge for the Paddleheads. And speaking of the Paddleheads, we're looking at them next. Middle of the pack in a lot of batting stuff, batting average and on base, as well as runs scored, just under 800 runs scored for them. Actually, one more run scored than the Ballers have, funny enough. More total bases than a lot of teams, coming in at 1,908. So second in the league there. They trail the Shookers, surprisingly enough, by about 100 or so total bags here. So we could see some good offensive production here in this series between two quality offenses. But this is where they diverge and where I think it's going to matter the most, which is in pitching. You have the ERA of a 5.6, third best in the league, second best in the postseason, a whip of a 1.56, which I know to a lot of people, these do not sound overly impressive, but again, look at the environments they're playing in. I cannot stress that enough. That is a factor in all of this. And when you look at the rosters, they're younger players, more inexperienced players, so they're going to get hit around a little bit more. Pitching takes time to mature and develop. They do have the most strikeouts, though, at 958, so big strikeout team. You could almost argue that this is the kind of team where they're going to throw really hard, and if you can hit it, you're going to make them pay, but teams struggle to hit it. Third fewest hits allowed, only 920 of those, and fourth fewest walks, 6 fewer than Idaho Falls had. Obviously, when you talk Missoula postseason, you have to look back at their previous struggles of getting out of the first round, winning in the championship series. They only have one so far, independent-wise, despite having the best record or second best record in the league. And I believe every season they've been independent so far. They're going to look to break that streak of losing in the postseason this year. And on that note, why don't we just look at the projections I have? I do have Oakland advancing over Ogden for what it's worth. I think it's going to be a quick series. I think it's going to be 2 games. I think the Ballers are just a far superior team to Ogden. And in the end, I think it's going to be fairly light work for them. At least I would expect it to be. On the flip side, we're looking Idaho Falls here. I think that offense is going to be able to do a number on Missoula. And while I think we're going to see a lot of high-scoring games, until Missoula is able to consistently win the postseason, I don't feel comfortable picking them. This is a matchup where I'm fully embracing the fact that I could be very, very wrong on it. And Missoula could easily sweep this series. However, I'm going off of past performance. I'm looking at the team they're playing here, and I'm just feeling like Idaho Falls in 3 could very well be what we see. And getting to that final, I think Oakland's just going to kind of roll through it here. They're 20 games better than just about everyone they're going to play this postseason. 9 games better than the next closest team. They're a unit. They're a better pitching team than Missoula would be. Better pitching team than just about anyone. And once you start putting them in these high altitude environments, I think that offense is really going to take off. And for what it's worth, I think the hometown environment and that home field advantage is really going to make a difference in that championship series. So I would say Oakland probably in 4. They'll drop 1 somewhere along the way, but on the way there, they're going to do pretty damn good in my opinion. So that's what we're looking at there. Appreciate you guys sticking around and watching this preview here, and we'll talk about it more in the pod this week. But until next time, don't forget to play ball.